Math 3, Unit 7, Section 7. So today we're talking about converting parabolas and circles to descriptive form. So oftentimes you're going to have equations and you won't know if they're not going to say this is a parabola or this is a circle, okay? But we know that circles, both your x term and your y term, have squares, or there's two squares in a circle, where a parabola only has one. So looking at this first equation here, is this going to be a parabola or a circle? Parabola. Very good. Okay, so we need to convert this to descriptive form. There are a couple ways that we can do this. There is an easy way, and then there's a way that's almost as easy. Okay? It's whatever makes the most sense to you. So we have this problem here. We want to get the y by itself. Okay? So the easiest thing to do is to first divide by 4, and then you would subtract 1, and it's in the correct form. Some people don't see it that way, and they want to distribute the 4 through. Then you would subtract 4, then you divide everything by 4, and it takes more time. So I'm going to go with the quicker, easier way. Is that okay with everyone? And then maybe it'll be okay with you, but if you want to do it the other way, you can. So what I mean is, since we want the y by itself, we're going to divide by 4 right here. So that cancels out. Do you want me to make this a little bigger over here for a minute? Okay, so we're dividing by 4. So when I rewrite this right now, this is 1/4 x minus 2 squared equals y plus 1. And then what would I still need to do?
Get rid of the 1.
Yeah, subtract 1. And so now I'm going to just flip this around, and I have y equals 1/4 x minus 2 squared minus 1. And that's my equation in descriptive form. Did I confuse anybody on anything there that you want me to go back and talk about? We're okay? All right, so we have our equation. Based on this information, what is the vertex? +2, -1. So I'm going to come over here. My vertex, just so we can see it on the screen, I'm going to rewrite my equation. The vertex is 2, 1, -1. What would be my axis of symmetry or line of symmetry? Well, in order to do that, what should I do? Find our C value, right? How do we find our C value? Very good. 4C equals the reciprocal of this number. So 4C equals 4. Then we do what? Good. Divide by 4. And C equals 1. Very good. So to graph, we are going to go right 2, down 1. Now, is this the graph going to go up or down, or right or left? Up. So that means that my focus is going to be going up by 1, and we're going to label that as the focus. And the directrix is going, or down by 1. And it's off here, so sorry. How do I find my focal chord endpoints? 2 times C, right? So 2 times 1 equals 2. So whatever this value is, we multiply it by 2 in order to get how far we go on each side. So we go right 2, left 2, this curves up, curves up. Do you guys remember where the axis or line of symmetry is? Good. It's going through that vertex straight up and down. So the axis or the line of symmetry there, that is at x equals what? 2. The focus is that point, which is at what? 2, 0, good. The directrix is where? Y equals -2, very good. And my focal chord endpoints are at what? 0, 0, and 4, 0. Okay, so I'm going to wait there for a minute. Do we have any questions or anything you want me to go back and talk about? Good question. So going back here, this really, I'm dividing this whole thing by 4, okay? And so the parenthesis is like a group, and we would have to distribute and factor this all out in order to put it to every single individual term within that parenthesis, or we could pull it out in front and write it as 1/4 times that parenthesis, which is more helpful for this problem. So we don't have to distribute it through, but I actually am dividing this whole thing by 4. And when you bring the 1/4 through, remember when you would distribute, you would actually distribute it to everything within that parenthesis. Okay, good question. Anybody else have any questions? All right, let's move on to number 2, or whatever this is called. Okay, the next example. Okay, looking at it first of all, what type of graph? It's a parabola. What type of parabola? Well, first of all, how do we know it's a parabola?
Because it only has one square.
One squared term. Okay, so if you look here, do you see how there's only one term that's being squared? Okay, that's how we know it's a parabola. Now, what direction will this parabola go? Right is correct. Right and left, and specifically right. And how do we know? Because it's x equals, and the number in front is positive. So x equals is right and left. Positive is, it's going to go right. So we're just going to put our little arrow up here to remind us that we're going to end up going to the right. Now we have to convert this to descriptive form. This is what we worked on yesterday. Okay? What will I need to do first? Very good. We're going to factor out 1/2. So we take out 1/2. We have y squared. And we're going to take 2 and divide it by 1/2. So when I have something like this, we have, this is 2 over 1 divided by 1/2, which means, what do we do with that? Flip it and change it to multiplication, right? So this ends up becoming 2 over 1 times, and we flip this to 2 over 1. And that equals what? 4, right? 4 over 1, which is really just 4. Okay, so that means here I have plus 4y, and then what's next? Good, plus your blank. Close the parenthesis. On the outside of the parenthesis, we put this number that doesn't have a y with it. So that's going to be -1. And what's going to go here? Okay, so right now this is saying 1/2 times the blank. How are we going to balance it? Very good. Minus 1/2 times the blank. So if we have 1/2 times the blank and we have a negative 1/2 times the same blank, it will balance. It'll make 0. Are we all okay with that? All right. What's our next step? Very good. 4 divided by 2 makes 2. So I'm going to start writing my equation. X equals 1/2, and what goes in my parenthesis? Y plus 2 squared. Very good. Okay, now what do I do? Good. We're going to square that 2, and it becomes 4. 4 goes into each of my blanks. Now we're going to simplify. So we have to take this information and combine it into one number. Am I going too fast? Are we good? Okay. So we have -1, and then this is -1/2 times 4 over 1. And what does that make? -2 is correct, because if you multiply straight across, we get -4 over 2, which reduces to be -2. And what is -1 minus -1 minus 2? -3. So here is -3. My equation. Okay, do we need to talk about anything there? We're okay? All right, so I'm going to rewrite that equation, and we're going to come over here to fill out this information. So again, the equation x equals 1/2 y plus 2 squared minus 3. Okay. Vertex. What will be my vertex? Very good. So some of you said it right, some of you said it wrong. Always pay attention. So you can make your parenthesis first, set this equal to 0. That's going to give me y equals -2, which means I need to put that in which spot? The y spot. So the -2 is going to go here, which means the -3 is going to go in the x. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and go -3, -2, which is off the graph. Sorry. And what would I do now? Very good. We're going to go 4c equals 2. So 4c equals the reciprocal of this value. Okay? So we divide by 4 to both sides, and we get c equals what? 1/2. What does that mean? Where should I go with that 1/2 information? We're going to go right and left 1/2 from the vertex. So right 1/2 is for my focus, and then left 1/2 is my directrix. Okay, next we should probably go ahead and find our focal chord endpoints. How do I do that? Good. We take this 1/2 value and we multiply it by 2. So 1/2 times 2 equals what? 1. So from the focus, we're just going up 1 and down 1. Okay, the line of symmetry is always going there through the middle of the vertex and going through the focus. That's your line of symmetry there that I just highlighted. Okay, so what would be my line of symmetry? How would I write that equation? I think that's -2, right? X equals -2. The vertex is at -2 on the Y. Okay. The focus is where? Very good. -2.5. Okay, because remember that was 1/2. So -2.5, and then it goes down -2. The directrix is at what? X equals -3.5. What are my focal chord endpoints? Very good. -2.5, -1, and then -2.5, and the other one would be at what? -3. Okay, any questions here? Yes? You are correct. Y equals -2 for line of symmetry is correct. That's Candy. All right. Anything else? Okay. Let's move on. Okay. So looking at this equation, What type of equation is it? Very good. How do you know? Only one squared term. Very good. Okay. So let's go ahead and put it into descriptive form, and then we can decide on what our direction is and stuff. So based on the way this one is written right now, what do you think should be our... Oops, I can't write. What should I do first? Okay, let's do it that way. So, someone said distribute. So, are we going to distribute the squared term? No. We can distribute this term. This works. We're doing this one a little different than I did the first one, which is totally fine. So, I have plus 5x plus 10 equals 0. Okay, what do you think I should do now? What are we going to try to get by itself? Actually, not the squared term. The one that's not squared. We want to get the x by itself. So what should I do? Okay, good. Subtract 5x. So this cancels. And I'm going to flip this around. Is that okay? So this will be written as negative 5x equals y minus 1 squared plus 10. Okay, what should I do now? Divide by negative 5 to everything, right? And so remember, and this is kind of what we talked about before, is that this is one thing. So we're going to divide by negative 5, so this parenthesis is being divided by negative 5, and the 10 is being divided by negative 5. This cancels, and so how would I write my equation? Perfect. Good. So we take out the fraction, so we get the negative 1/5, y minus 1 squared, and then 10 divided by negative 5 makes a negative 2. So there's my equation. We're going to move this up here just so that we can see it on the same screen. Let's see here. So x equals negative 1/5 y minus 1 squared minus 2. Okay, what direction will this graph go? It's going to go left. Why? Very good. It's x equals, so we know it's right and left, and because my a value here in front is negative, that means it's going to go to the left. Okay. What is my vertex? Set this equal to 0. What equals? Y equals what? So we put 1 in the y spot, which means negative 2 goes in the x spot. Be careful of that. That's why I always say that. Okay? Now, how else will I graph this? What will I need to do? I'm going to go ahead and put my vertex on my graph. How do we, even though it doesn't say focal chord endpoints and directrix and all that kind of stuff, in order to sketch your graph, you need that information. So what am I going to do now? Oh my goodness, you are right. Good catch. Negative 2, positive 1 is correct. Another candy. Okay. What do I do? What's my next step? 4c equals what? Yeah, it's going to be negative 5, or you don't have to worry about the negative if you don't want to, but we're doing the reciprocal. So then the next thing I do is what? Divide by 4. So my c value equals negative 1 and 1/4. Okay, that's not a very fun number, but we're going to go ahead and just kind of put it on the graph. Okay, so negative 1 and 1/4 would be going left. Negative 1 and 1/4 is for my focus, and going right 1 and 1/4 for my directrix. Okay, we're not going to do our focal chord endpoints right now, and my reason for that is They didn't ask for it. So we're just going to give this parabola, we're just going to draw it like this. We know it's going left like that. Okay, line of symmetry, we know, is this line going through the focus and the vertex. So we have that. Okay, line of symmetry, what is that equation? Y equals 1. Okay, how many x-intercepts will this parabola have? How many times will it touch the x-axis? How many times? Look right here. 1 time, right? How many times will it hit the y-axis over here? None. The parabola is going left. It's never going to hit the y-axis. So do you understand why we don't necessarily need the focal chord endpoints? We don't have to spend that time. Okay. All right. We're going to go to this next one. You can go. Do you feel like you have it? Okay. All right. What am I going to do next here? On this next problem. We have to complete the square, right? Yes or no? Yeah. Okay, what direction is this parabola going to go? It's going to go down. It's y equals, which means it goes up and down. Because this number in front is negative, that means it's going to go down. I am sorry that I messed up on all of these graphs. Please forgive me. Okay, so, and it was me. What do I do now? So in order to put it in the correct form, we have to do what? Factor out a -2. So I get x squared, and we are dividing each of these, you know, by -2. And so what do I end up with? What's 4 divided by -2? -2x plus blank. And then we get -5 at the end. And who thinks they know what goes on the right side there? +2 and what? +2 times the blank. So remember that right here, this is -2 times the blank. So then we are going to need a +2 times the blank. Why do we do that? To balance it. We can't just randomly put a number here, okay? And so we're basically adding 0 because we're adding and subtracting the same number, okay? So now, what is my next step? -2 divided by 2, which makes -1. We write our equation, or at least start to, y equals -2 parenthesis x minus 1 squared. Then we take -1 square it, which makes 1. 1 goes in our blanks. We simplify this, and we get -5 plus 2 times 1, which is 2. And what does that make? -3. Have our equation. Any questions there? Okay, so over here I'm going to rewrite it just so it's on the screen. Y equals -2, x minus 1 squared minus 3. Okay, what's my vertex? Good, so we write this, set equal to 0, x equals 1, that goes in the x spot, which means that goes in the y spot. Okay, write 1 down 3. Now, we can find our focus and our directrix in order to graph it, okay? And how would I do that on this problem? 4c equals what? -1/2. Again, we take the reciprocal of this value, okay? So -1/2. What happens now? Divide by 4. Okay, when I do that, how am I going to write this to figure out this problem? What's it going to become? You can write this as 4/1. So it's a fraction divided by a fraction. How will I change that? So we're going to keep the first one the same, -1/2. Change division to multiplication, and then what do I do with this one? Flip it, right? And so we get 1/4. When we multiply that, we get -1/8. Do you want to ask me a question about fractions here? No? Yes? We're okay? So what that means is we're going 1/8 down for my focus, 1/8 up for my directrix. We know that this parabola, since they're not asking for my focal chord endpoints, we know it's just going to curve down. And we know that we are going to have our line of symmetry there that goes through the middle. So what is my line of symmetry? X equals 1. How many times does this graph touch the x-axis? 0. How many times does it touch the y-axis? Once. Okay, questions? All right, last one. Convert this to descriptive form. What type of graph is this? Very good, it is a circle. Okay, what am I going to do? We want to put our x's in the parentheses with a blank, right? So, parenthesis, x squared plus 6x plus, very good, plus, we go to our y's. Perfect. Y squared minus 4y plus blank. Now, what should I have done at the beginning, possibly? Very good. Move the number over that didn't have a variable, which was 6. So I get -6. And so with the circle, we have our numbers that don't have letters are on the right side. So what am I going to do on this one with my blanks? We're going to add 2 blanks, because on this one, we're adding the same thing to both sides, which also makes a balanced equation.
This one doesn't need a times?
No, so if you had a number you had factored out in front, it would. So if you want to think about these, if you want to do it that way, and this is 1 times that, and you want to put a 1 in front of these blanks, you could do that. Okay? All right, what do I do now? Very good. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We go down here and we get x plus 3 squared. Then what do? Square it, which makes 9. 9 goes into one of the blanks on each side. Moving to the y equation, we take -4 divided by 2, which is -2. We're going to put that in our equation, so we get y minus 2 squared. We square -2, which makes it a 4. 4 goes into each of these blanks. We combine these together, and what do we end up getting? 7. Okay. Any questions right there? All right, so let's go ahead and finish this one up. What is the center? -3, 2. Good. Again, always make sure you're thinking about, okay, this is x equals, it needs to go in the x spot. Okay, -3, +2. There's my center. Okay, what is my radius? So remember, radius is r squared equals this value at the end, which is 7. So we take the square root, and so my radius is the square root of 7. That isn't helpful when I am graphing, though, is it? But what do I know? The square root of 9 is 3, right? So this is going to be 2 point something. So do you guys see how if you didn't have a calculator, you could know, you'd have an idea of what it would be based on the other number of square roots that you know. Okay? But we can go ahead and figure out what it is exactly because we're going to use a calculator. And the square root of 7 is approximately 2.6. So we're going to go 2.6 in each direction. Draw our circle. Okay. How many x-intercepts do you see? 2. Good. Do you guys see these right here? So it crosses the x-axis here and here. So that makes 2. How many y-intercepts? 0. It never touches the y-axis because it's 2.6. It's not to 3. It'd have to be at 3 for it to touch the y-axis. All right, any questions?